Religion easily has the greatest bullshit story ever told. Think about it. Religion has actually convinced people that there's an invisible man living in the sky who watches everything you do every minute of every day. And the invisible man has a special list of 10 things he does not want you to do. And if you do any of these 10 things, he has a special place full of fire and smoke and burning and torture and anguish, where he will send you to live and suffer and burn and choke and scream and cry forever and ever till the end of time. But he loves you.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Now, if you watched that clip and you laughed, certainly as hard as I laughed, then you're probably a lot like me. You're non-religious, non-secular. I would even go so far as to say I am, agnostic. In fact, I even get turned off by religious people, honestly. Nothing gets my blood boiling faster than watching a politician go onto Twitter or onto the news one night after a mass shooting. 20 students were just mowed down with high-powered assault rifles, and the best they could come up with is, we're sending you thoughts and prayers. Really? Really? I mean, that just boils my blood. So I am very heavily non-religious. I'm not religious at all. I don't practice. I don't go to church. I don't really buy into any of that type stuff for a variety of reasons beyond the scope of this particular video. But I guess that begs the question, why am I posting this video and I'm talking about religion and Vipassana in the same sentence? Everything that I read indicates that this is a non-religious meditation technique. But here's the catch. You will find out that by your second or third day at the Vipassana meditation course, 10-day course, that not everything that you were told is entirely the truth. You certainly were not lied to, but you were not given 100% of the truth regarding the role of religion, in this case Buddhism, the role and influence of Buddhism, which is a religion. I'm not going to get into in this video whether it's a lifestyle, whether it's a philosophy. It's most certainly a religion. What is the role of Buddhism, or how heavy is the influence of a Buddhist religion in your meditation? Because if you're like me, and the mere thought or just the notion of something being religious just kind of turns your stomach, then you might benefit from this information. I wish that I had seen a video like this prior to going to the meditation course. I'm not so sure it would have changed my decision, but certainly it would have been beneficial to me. Let's just quickly read some of the documentation from the Dhamma, where once you register, you'll get an information pack. And what they say here is what Vipassana is not. It is not a rite or ritual based on blind faith. Great. And actually, I have to give credit to S.N. Goenka. In one of the discourses, he does go into detail at length regarding the dangers of blind faith. And it's good to see here that they are going out of their way to say that this is a non-secular, it's a non-religious type meditation. But again, not everything that you've been told is 100% of the truth. So that's what we're going to get into in this video. We're going to be talking about two things in particular. We're going to be talking about the role of Buddhism in this meditation course. And then certainly the second part of this video, which is the third part in a 4-part series, the second part of this video, I will be talking about the meditation techniques, the schedule themselves, which is really the meat and potatoes of this third video in this 4-part series. So let's get into it. What is the role of religion in Vipassana, and what is the meditation technique themselves? Let's go. Okay, everyone, so in this part of the video, we'll be talking about the role of Buddhism in Vipassana meditation. And again, the information that I'm going to present here and the opinions that I'm going to present here are not meant as a criticism in any way. I've lived in Thailand peacefully now for the better part of 40 years. I've raised my family here. You know, Buddhism, the religion itself, is not a in-your-face type of religion. I have had no issues with the Buddhist religion. I think it does wonders for the country. Probably if more people in the world were Buddhist, there might even be less world wars for all I know. From everything that I could see, Buddhism is really about living in peace and harmony, and not about, you know, going to hell and, you know, spending eternity in the fiery depths of whatever. You know, it's more about just a harmonious relationship with everything and everyone around you. So let's talk about the role of Buddhism in this Vipassana meditation. But before we start, I think it's important just to read just a few lines from the information pack that you're provided with upon registering. And I want to read here, Vipassana meditation aims at the highest spiritual goals of total liberation and full enlightenment. Okay, so right away you know that you haven't signed up for, you know, Dick's meditation. This is, you know, a serious meditation technique with its roots clearly in the religion of Buddhism. And I want to just continue on here. And when you do start this Vipassana meditation, they want you to dedicate yourself 110% to it. Let me just read to you from the documentation. During the course, it is absolutely essential that all forms of prayer, worship, or religious ceremony, fasting, burning incense, counting beads, reciting mantras, singing and dancing, etc., be discontinued. All other meditation techniques and healing or spiritual practices should also be suspended. So they really want you to dedicate. They want you to drop everything. Now, again, this information that I presented to you is purely for informational purposes. If you come from a religious background that prohibits something like this, then maybe you should reconsider notions of joining a Vipassana meditation. It is very clearly rooted in the Buddhist religion. So with that being said, continuing on, let's talk about first Vipassana, the name Vipassana. I was curious, so I did a little bit of research. And Vipassana, the word itself, actually comes from two words. The first part of the word Vipassana is V, and that means to be clear. This is a Pali word, and as we know, Pali is the language of the Buddha. And the second part of the word Vipassana means to see. So when you combine the two words, clear and to see, you can kind of get the notion that the meaning of Vipassana means to see clearly. Enlightenment, perhaps, might be a better way to see it, or according to the documentation that I have, to see things as they are. So, you know, that's another indication that the meditation technique that you're about to study, the 10-day course, is very firmly rooted in Buddhist religion. And then again, you're not going to study meditation at, you know, your neighborhood YMCA. You're not going down to the local elementary school. You're not going to your neighborhood library. You're going to a Dhamma. Well, what's a Dhamma? There is no direct English translation for the word Dhamma. You get long and convoluted meanings when you Google it and search it. The best way that I could probably describe it is, and you may disagree with me, but I have found that defining Dhamma as a center to study the Buddhist teachings, for me, I'm comfortable with that definition. Now, there are other definitions out there, but I guess, and however you define it, that's up to you. The point being is you're going to study Vipassana, which is a Buddhist term, to see clearly or to see things as they are. And you're not going to a library, you're not going to an elementary school, you're going to a quasi-religious facility called a Dhamma, or path forward, the path to enlightenment. There are many definitions out there. But you should just know that the role of Buddhism here is quite strong. And let me give you some other examples as we get into this video. By about the third day at the course, again, I'm an agnostic, I'm secular. I hope I've used that term correctly, by the way, finally. I just want nothing to do with religion in my life. That's a personal choice that I've made. By about the third day at the meditation, I was starting to get a little bit wigged out here. I didn't do my research on Vipassana. I didn't know what a Dhamma was. I didn't know a lot of the other religious connotations or influences were so heavily imbued or imbibed into this meditation technique. And that's really the information that I'm trying to give to you so that you can make a better decision on whether to join one of these meditation courses. Okay, continuing. The next indication that you are not studying, Susie's meditation techniques, by the numbers, or A to Z meditation. You're studying a quasi-religious meditation technique. And my evidence, for lack of a better term, is that when you show up on day one, or day zero rather, they call it day zero, which is the check-in day, you will notice that all, if not most, if not all, workers will be dressed in white. In fact, many of the students that are joining will also be dressed in white. Now, where I come from, I walk into a room and everyone's dressed in white. I'm looking for my tinfoil hat, as quickly as possible. They're not going to get me type of attitude. So for me, a room full of people dressed in white, it's, and I get it. I understand that it's a pure color. Maybe their reasoning is that, well, we really want you to focus. We really want you to concentrate. If you wore brightly colored clothes, then we would not be able to concentrate. I'm not sure I buy that. I mean, could be light blue. I'm wearing a light blue shirt. Could be light pink. Could be cream. Why does it necessarily have to be, all white? So if you Google religion and white, well, you're going to get some interesting pictures. So for me, that was a little bit, I'm already studying Vipassana. I'm in a Dhamma. I'm surrounded by people in white, with happy smiles on their face, for better or for worse, with happy smiles on their face. Yeah. And then when you get into the meditation hall as well, these attendees are really taking it seriously with the attire. And, for better or for worse, that's just me. Again, I'm a skeptic. So that's just another thing that I noticed. By the way, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before in the videos, when you arrive, don't be like me and make the assumption that the workers that are running around facilitating this are paid workers. They work at the Dhamma, rather, they're there all the time. No, these could very well be students that have returned to improve their meditation skills, ability. They want to give it back. They feel strongly in spreading this meditation technique. And they really want to give, and I think it's great. I think it's noble, and I think it's wonderful. And it's, 150% selfless. These are not just workers. They may also be students. And you will see these workers in the meditation hall as well, together with you on your meditation journey. Yeah, so let's keep going, and I just have a few more points where I want to talk about the role of Buddhism in this meditation technique. When you get into your room, If you are like me, you immediately want to start setting up the room the way you like it. Maybe move the bedside table around a bit, put up your toiletries, move the pillow. You can't do that. That pillow is in a very specific position in your room. And if you look closely to the left of the door or to the right of the door, depending on what type of room you're in, you'll see that they have a notice. Please do not move the pillow. Keep the pillow in the direction of the main meditation hall. Well, okay, what does the location of my pillow have to do with meditation? Well, this one I'm going to leave to you. Do your research on it, but it's interesting to note that I thought that I had one-upped them when I got into the room, and I said, they're not going to get me. I'm going to make my bed the way I want. No, they've got everything with thousands of students coming through these centers annually all around the world. They've got this dialed down to a science. There's no guesswork here. So don't move your pillow. You can, but the consequences will be on you. Throughout the day, you will hear this sound. Now that's a bell from a Thai temple. Now they could have used this, or they could have used this, but they didn't. They used a Thai temple bell, which has a very, very distinctive sound. And this is the bell that they will wake you up with at 4 in the morning. They will call you into the 4:30 a.m. meditation session without coffee, without a shower. You just get up, roll out, and you're in the meditation. That is also the bell that they will use to call you for meals and for the discourses. They will announce the discourses. So if they give you, between a meditation, they'll give you a break. If they want to call you back for further instruction, they will also use that bell. So that's quite an interesting bell that they've chosen to use. Further indication that, again, the role of Buddhism in this meditation technique is strong. Okay, here I just want to talk about why you are eating vegetarian for the 10 days on this Vipassana meditation course. It's not because it's healthy. It's been shown that vegetarianism, actually when you compare it to the Mediterranean diet or the carnivore diet or the keto diet even, it's, vegetarian lacks protein, and that's what keeps you satiated. So it's not for health reasons that you are eating vegetarian. It's not because it's more easily digestible. In fact, you'll probably get a lot of intestinal gas. See my tips and tricks at the end for a tip on this. It is not for some PETA initiative. By the way, PETA is a wonderful organization. People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I highly suggest or recommend that you reach out to them and make a small donation. They do wonderful work. But no, you are not eating vegetarian because this is a PETA initiative. You are eating vegetarian because the link between Buddhism and vegetarianism is very, very strong. I think, if not wrong, the Buddha himself was a vegetarian. And I just want to read quickly from the little booklet that you get, the pack of information you get when you register. When you agreed to go on this Vipassana course, you agreed to abide by 5 key, they call them precepts here. Let me just quickly read to you the 5 precepts. To abstain from killing any being, to abstain from stealing, to abstain from all sexual activity, to abstain from telling lies, and to abstain from all intoxicants. Okay, so the first one there, to abstain from killing any being. I'm just going to assume that the link to vegetarianism is, I guess, contained within this precept. Vegetarian is you're not really killing anything. Plants are not sentient, they're not human, they're not animals. I'm going to believe or think that the link there between vegetarianism and Buddhism is, related to this precept here, not to or to abstain from killing any being. And then finally, you should know that in Thailand, there is a very famous, well-known, popular vegetarian festival in Phuket every year where everyone is eating vegetarian and walking around all dressed in what color? You got it, all dressed in white. Okay, so that wraps up this section. Before I really get on to the final two indications that this is not, Joe's meditation by the numbers. This is a quasi-religious meditation technique, and there are really two key heavyweight reasons that I'm going to talk about this, or my opinion on why this is, I consider this a quasi-religious retreat or meditation course. Okay, continuing, I guess one of the biggest indicators that this is a meditation technique heavily related to the Buddhist religion. For better or for worse, it's up to you. I'm just giving you the information, and you do with it what you want. The biggest indication that I have that this is not, meditation by numbers down at Joe's YMCA. When you get there, you will notice very, very quickly that there is a lot of chanting going on. Chanting in Thai is called Suat Mon. There is a lot of chanting going on. In fact, every single meditation session that you go into, and there are, 5, 6 per day, 7 per day, the opening of the meditation session is preceded by chanting, by Goenka, and the closing of the meditation, each of the meditation sessions is closed with a chant. Now these, Goenka is chanting in, I believe, Pali or Sanskrit, I'm not sure, but he is chanting Buddhist scriptures. I will leave a link to the description below where you can actually get an English translation of the chantings. And the password, so that you can, if you're interested, do a bit of research on what he's actually chanting about. That link will be in the description. But you should know that there is a lot of chanting going on, both during the day and throughout the evening discourses. In fact, some of the discourses he will actually be chanting, but he will also break out in song from time to time. Now, if you're like me, chanting is just it's just not my thing. It's just not my thing. So the first time I heard the chanting, I was in the meditation hall. It was a bizarre sound. It was a very alien sound to me. I almost started laughing. It was just, to me, it was no disrespect intended. It was just, the sound was just hilarious. And then some of the what would you say, just the raw guttural sound of the chanting itself is just, now admittedly he does have a good voice. He is very adept at both singing and chanting. But then I began to think that for someone that says they should lower their ego somewhat, he does a pretty good job of making it well known that he is an expert in chanting and singing scripture in either, I think it's Pali or Sanskrit, I'm not sure, I think it's Pali, which I thought was a bit, I thought it was a bit heavy, the chanting. Yeah, if you want to set the mood, if you want to set the tone, if you want to build the environment, you want a solemn, you want a holy environment, once a day would be enough for me. I get it. But not every single meditation opening, every single meditation closing, and then throughout the discourses at length. And just a final note here before I close off this section. On day 11, so my full 10 days are done. I thought I was done. The night of the 10th, I'm starting to breathe easily because I'm thinking that, wow, it's all downhill from here. Tomorrow's the 11th day. I'm going to check out and go home at 7:30 a.m. No, they've got you all the way to the end. And when I say to the end, they really push it to the last minute. And as an example of that, on that day 11, we were up at 4 and in the mini hall at 4:30. They had all the lights off. They turned on the projector onto a black screen, and then they turned on Goenka chanting to a black screen. I think it was for the first 15 minutes I was there. And I'm looking around the room and I'm looking to the people, next to me. Have I lost it? Why am I sitting here at 4:30 a.m. on day 11 in a dark room listening to chanting? I should be packing my bags. And at that point, I just walked out. I said, I'm done. I did my 10 days. Guys, I did it. I put in my good faith effort. I did everything you wanted me to. But I'm just not going to sit here at 4:30 a.m. in a dark room, staring at a blank screen, listening to chanting again. So I left. I got out and left. I said, you do what you want to me. Call the police. You call whatever you want to call. I'm just done. And I went to my room and I started packing. And about 10 minutes later, one of the workers quietly knocked on my door, and I opened the door, and he said, rather sheepishly, he said, okay, Gil. I was speaking to him in Thai. He said, Gil, the chanting is done. The discourse has started. Would you consider coming back? And I said, you know what? Okay, I'll come back. So then I returned to the mini hall and we finished off the discourse. But by that time, I think I was probably pretty well checked out emotionally. But I have to say, and we'll talk about the discourses, I think this particular discourse, if not this discourse, plus either the day 9 or 10 discourse were I was very pleased to see some of the information contained in those discourses. Some of the other discourses, but I think it was when we talk about the discourses, I'll actually give you a detail on the discourses that I thought were really, really beneficial. But I thought that the final day 11 discourse, where he talked about there are two components to Vipassana. There's a practical side, and then there's a theoretical side, and you do what you want with the theoretical side, but please keep on the practical side. I'll go into this in more detail. I thought that was really beneficial and really refreshing that he recognized that not everyone may be so gung-ho on buying into all of this Buddhist theory. But that being said, that's it. You should know that there's just a lot of chanting. If that's not your thing, it's up to you. I highly recommend before you get on to the dhamma.org website and register that at least you take a look at some of the YouTube videos to see if this is something that you could swallow or not. Okay, so let's wrap up this section and move on to the discussion about meditation and the schedule. But before I do that, I just want to say a few things about the evening discourses, which happen, I believe they're at 7 p.m. Until 8 or 8:15 p.m. every evening. For me, the discourses were probably the least interesting part of the entire course for a variety of reasons. I guess first and foremost is they're late at night. So you've been up since 4:30 in the morning. You've been doing meditation all day. You've had a couple of breaks here and there for meals, but by 7 p.m., you're really already pretty well shattered. And then you have to go into this 1-hour video discourse or lecture. And not really quite sure what he's going to talk about or what wisdom he's going to impart on you. So for me, the discourses were really challenging. Also, the discourses, they start and stop with chanting, and they also include quite a lot of Pali language and singing, which for me it doesn't work for me. I thought the discourses were going to be, objective studies on the benefits of meditation. For example, I think there was a study done a quite large clinical study done on US prisons where they introduced meditation, and don't quote me, but it was shown to reduce, violence by 15% or 20%, or, repeat behavior, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought the discourses were going to be more scientific. They're not really scientific at all. They're more anecdotes, stories of times gone past 2,500 years ago that have been handed down. That just, for me, they just weren't really, there were only really two useful discourses for me. One discourse was the discourse where he talked about the dangers of blind faith. And he doesn't want, he's not a proponent. And for me, that was interesting to hear, because also for me, as a non-religious person, as an agnostic, when I see blind faith, I run the other direction. So, and it was great to see that Goenka also himself recognized that. So I took a lot out of that discourse. And then there was another discourse where he talked about Vipassana meditation has two key parts, the theoretical side and the practical side. And he said, look, I'm doing my best to give you both. But at the end of the day, if you want to take the theoretical side out and just practice the practical side of Vipassana meditation, which we'll get into, the meditation technique, go ahead and do it. And I thought that for me, that was also really refreshing, that I could do that and I didn't necessarily have to take Vipassana meditation. I didn't have to take all of the Buddhist religion connotations, philosophy, way of life, beliefs, culture, etc. with it. I could just practice the practical aspect of Vipassana meditation, which I'll get into, but actually I like it and I enjoy it and I agree with it to some extent. Finally, the one note that I do want to take out of the discourses is that he really shows his human side. He's got good humor. He is empathetic. He recognizes that this is a difficult, challenging program. I think day 2 discourse, he says, okay, you've done with day 1. It's a challenge, but it's gotten a little bit better, right? And for me, day 2, it was just a tiny bit better than day 1. Day 1 was off the chart difficult. But then it's slowly, like someone is slowly releasing their grip on your neck. I felt a small breath of air come into my body. And it seems that he recognizes that. And when he said that, day 2, you're a little bit better, right? I was kind of in the room going, yeah, yep, that's me. I'm a little bit better. So I really liked seeing the human side of him. When you go into a Buddhist temple and you see monks that are chanting for hours and days, or whatever, sitting in a cave for months, you don't really realize that at the end of the day, they are also human. So for me, that was great to see and great to hear. So I'm not going to talk too long on this. I do, though, highly recommend that if you're interested in Vipassana meditation, you get onto YouTube. I think you know what YouTube is. It's on this little thing called the internet. You can actually use a browser that a company by the name of Google, small little company, invented. And take a look at 1 or 2 of the discourses. I wouldn't go through all of them because that's like eating your dessert before your main course. But I would certainly look at 1 or 2 of the discourses and see if this is something that might be good for you. That being said, let's move on to talking about the meditation and the meditation schedule themselves. Okay, so in this section, let's look at the schedule for the daily meditations. Please note that this schedule will change slightly. About the middle of the week, they'll post notices for how the schedule itself will change. So I'm not going to cover every single change that they make to the meditation schedule. I'm just going to cover the generic schedule that you get as part of your information pack. But if you understand this schedule, by and large, you'll be able to understand really what you're in for here. And this by no means is a light meditation course. But anyway, let's get into the actual meditation schedule and what you can look forward to. Okay, so the morning bell will go off at 4 a.m. every morning. You should wake up for that. Splash some water on your face. and then head into the main meditation hall at 4:30 to 6:30 a.m. From 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. will be the breakfast break. And then from 8 to 9 a.m., there is a mandatory group meditation in the hall, the main meditation hall. From 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., you can meditate either in your room or in the main meditation hall. And then from 11 to 12 noon, there will be a lunch break. From 12 noon to 1 p.m., you will have a chance to ask any questions with the teacher. And then from 1 to 2:30 p.m., you can either meditate in the hall or in your own room. From 2:30 to 3:30 p.m., there is a mandatory group meditation in the hall, in the main meditation hall. And then from 3:30 to 5 p.m., you can either meditate in your room or in the main meditation hall again. From 5 to 6 p.m., there will be a light tea break, snacks, and light snacks for the evening. This is your last meal. From 6 to 7, there will be a mandatory group meditation in the main hall. And then from 7 to about 8:15 will be the SN Goenka discourses and videos every evening. And then following the videos, there will be a mandatory group meditation in the main meditation hall. And then generally they will wind up the day at 9 p.m. And then it's lights out at about 9:30 p.m. And you will do this for 10 days. Okay, so by looking at that schedule, the one thing you should notice right away is that the Dhamma.org, the organization that does these Vipassana meditation courses, I will refer to them as they really, really, really want you to meditate. This is not a retreat. This is not a getaway. This is not an escape. This is just pure meditation. Well, hey, it's a meditation course, right? If you go to a cooking school, you're going to cook, right? Well, here you're here to meditate. And that's it. You can clearly see in the schedule that from 4:30 or 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m. rather, until 9 p.m., you are in meditation. Now, looking quickly at the schedule, you can see that there are really two types of meditations. These are the group meditations in the meditation hall, and for lack of a better term, I want to call these mandatory. You need to show up at these meditation sessions. There will be someone checking attendance, following you, and if you don't show up for any of these group meditation sessions in the main hall, you will get a knock on your door. Happened to me once because of lack of communication. But anyway, those are mandatory sessions. You are expected to be there. Now, the second type of meditation, rather, is a meditation where they allow you to choose whether you're going to do the meditation in the main meditation hall or you're going to go back to the room and continue your meditation in the room. Now, for me, this was my escape hatch. Look, I'm a weekend warrior. I'm a, once a year, 10-minute, which was already very difficult for me, 10, 15 minutes meditation once a year. I now realize I was doing it all wrong, but that's for a separate video. But I'm a weekend meditation warrior. And for me to go from, 10 minutes a year to now hours per day, some sessions are 1.5, 2 hours long. I think by the fourth or fifth day, there's a slight change to the schedule. I'm not going to go through all of the different changes to the schedule they make. They will post it in the cafeteria, what changes are on the schedule for the day. But that session, that 2-hour session is called an adhitthana, strict, mandatory, no movement. For me to go from 10 minutes a year to doing a 2 hours strict, no movement meditation, it's quite an achievement. I'm quite proud of myself. So any opportunity that I had to retreat, to escape back to my room, you're going from the fire pan to the fire, or what's the phrase, heading back to the room is not, it's not as great as it sounds. You're in Thailand. There's no air conditioning. There's nothing to do in the room. It's hot. But any opportunity that I had to go back to the room, I would take it. And I would head back to the room. And I would either sleep, especially if it was a session in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon. I would never sleep, take a nap late in the afternoon. I'd be fearful of never falling asleep that night. But morning sessions, I would use those opportunities where they say you can meditate in the room. By and large, I would end up sleeping, taking a nap. Or another survival tactic that I had was that I would walk. I would walk endlessly, and any opportunity that I had, I would walk. And that kept my mind engaged. I must have looked like a crazy person because I would walk around. I think I posted a photo of it, of the little racetrack they have there, the walking path. I would just walk that for hours, mumbling to myself. I must have looked like a crazy person. Actually, I was practicing these videos, these YouTube videos. I was practicing the script, but I must have looked darn scary. So yeah, I would just use any opportunity that I had to head back to the room. Look, I made the effort. I did the mandatory sessions. They end up being, if you do all of the mandatory sessions, I think they are 3 to 4 hours a day meditating. For me, that was okay. I'm not going to be too hard on myself. But let's take a look at some of the other aspects of the schedule, some things you should know about the schedule as well. Okay, so continuing, just looking at the schedule, the morning bell goes off at 4 a.m. Now, I highly recommend that you make the effort and get up and get into the meditation hall. Okay, I understand that it is, it's not voluntary, but they do allow you to wake up at 4 and then start a 4:30 a.m. meditation. They do allow you to do it in your room, not the main meditation hall. But for me, I got up, I made the effort, and I got into the meditation hall at 4:30 a.m. First of all, you're in northern Thailand. So early in the morning at 4:30 in the morning, especially if it's raining, it's absolutely beautiful, really, really wonderful. It's quiet, it's serene. The meditation hall is nice and cool and quiet. It's absolutely magical. So I actually enjoyed getting up at 4 and getting into the meditation hall at 4:30. Now, did I make the entire 2 hours in the meditation hall? No. I made a best effort. I would usually last about 30 or 35 minutes. Look, it's 4:30 in the morning. I haven't had any coffee. I haven't had any shower. I'm going to do 30 minutes, and then I would go back to my room and sleep. I would then sleep until the breakfast bell, which, set the day off on the right foot, so to speak. So, I would highly recommend getting up at 4 a.m. There's nothing wrong with it. Getting up at 4 a.m., chance to clear your mind. Get up, get into the meditation hall, and go as long as you can before you head back to your room. And just another note, I did see a video from someone prior to going to this meditation course. I did see that he posted that by the second or third day, he ended up just skipping the 4:30 a.m. sessions. And now looking back on it, because he was posting a video recapping his experience, looking back on it, he said that he ended up regretting skipping those sessions. And I really took that to heart, and I didn't want to be that guy. No disrespect intended, but I didn't want to be like him. So I ended up making the effort, and I didn't want to have any regrets. Again, I didn't make the full 2 hours, but I did get up daily at 4. I did get into I would break down my bed, I would clean my room a bit, I would brush my teeth. You're not drinking any alcohol, so you're not hungover. You've had a pretty good night's sleep. So I felt pretty fresh in the morning, and then I would get into the meditation hall at 4:30 a.m. and do 30 or 35 minutes, and it was absolutely fantastic. And then I would go back to the bed, remake my bed. I'll give you some, be sure to watch the tips and tricks. I would then remake my bed again and get into bed and then sleep for another hour, hour and a half until breakfast time, which was really, really great for me. Allowed me to get through this. Okay, so finally, let's start talking about the meditation technique itself, which is really the meat and potatoes of these videos. The meditation technique itself is actually has two parts to it. The first part is called Anapana, And you do Anapana, which I'll explain in a moment, I think for the first 3 or 4 days, strictly Anapana. You don't actually start Vipassana meditation until, I think it's the 4th day. You can check the schedule. So the first part of the technique is Anapana, and then you start the actual Vipassana meditation technique later in the week. Now, what is Anapana? Anapana is a breathing technique. It's not a forced breathing technique. You're just breathing normally, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to focus your attention on this area in the lower part of the face around your nose and your nostril region. And with every breath in and with every breath out, you try to focus and feel the airflow coming in and out of your nose. And what this does is, this is actually a very effective technique for, I guess, settling your mind. You want to bring your mind down to a calm and settled state before you actually start the Vipassana meditation technique. Now, in this entire Vipassana course, the one thing that really did get me excited was the meditations. The discourses, as I mentioned before, I wasn't really too thrilled about. The vegetarian, it's okay, the surroundings are okay, but for me, the meditation technique was, I liked it, I enjoyed it, and I thought there's a lot of benefit in it. So the first part of the meditation technique is Anapana. You bring your mind down to a calm and settled state. By the way, Anapana works. You can apply and use Anapana in just about any situation you're in life, whether you're sitting in traffic, whether you're trying to fall asleep at night, when you're in the doctor's office waiting for the doctor, you had an appointment, but he's 45 minutes late. You can use Anapana anywhere. And I think that's just another tool in our tool shed for how to get through life. If you can bring your mind down to a calm and settled state using Anapana, 10, 15 minutes here and there, why not? It's great. You can bring it everywhere with you. You will always have that technique. So once you master Anapana, and again, it's for the first 3 or 4 days, you're going to get very good at Anapana, by the way. You're doing this for 10 hours a day for 3 days. You are going to get very good at it. You will very, very quickly learn how to bring your mind down. For me, I was able to bring my mind down, previously, before any of this course, before any of this instruction, it would take me a good 20, 25 minutes to bring my mind down to a settled state. Using Anapana, I would go into a sitting and I would bring my mind down within a minute or 2. I could just feel it. I could feel everything flow out of me. I was relaxed, I was calm. I was able to control my mind. I was able to bring my thoughts back into the meditation. My mind was not wandering after a minute or 2 is great. So then once you master Anapana, then you start the actual Vipassana meditation. Now, there's a lot of pseudoscience here. There's a lot of theory here with regards to Vipassana. But what Vipassana tries to do is it tries to draw a link between your physical actions, whether you're getting angry or sad or frustrated or suffering, or on the other side, if you're elated, you're having joy, you're loving something, you're addicted to something, that's called cravings and aversions. Tries to draw a link between your physical actions and your thoughts, because we know that thoughts drive. You get pissed off at somebody, that's it's in your mind, and then you act out on that. You get into a fight with that person, or you have an argument with that person, or you say something cross with that person. Thoughts drive actions. And then what drives thoughts? Well, this is where it gets a bit woolly, but for me it works. I understand it, sort of, but I buy into it. Your unconscious, your subconscious, unconscious, subconscious, I'm not sure of the difference. But deep down is what drives your thoughts, and then your thoughts ultimately drive your physical actions. So what Vipassana tries to do, by way of the meditation technique, is tries to open a door into your unconscious mind. And once you can access your unconscious mind, then you can begin to control your thoughts, and then you can begin to control your physical actions. And it gets quite interesting here. Now, you might be asking, well, how does Vipassana allow me to access my unconscious or my subconscious mind? Well, they do that by increasing your level of sensitivity to your physical sensations. So when you're doing Anapana for 3-4 hours, you start to become hypersensitive. You don't have any external, inputs coming in. Your eyes are closed, you're not speaking, your hearing becomes really acute. Your sensitivity to all things around you, the fan, the wind, the temperature in the room, minor sounds here and there, crickets outside, birds outside. I swear that at some point I became so sensitive that I could hear, I'm making this up obviously, but I could hear snakes, slithering in the grass 100 meters out. Obviously not, but you begin to feel like that. And what Vipassana does is increases your sensitivity and forces you to focus on sensitivity, physical sensitivity on your body through regular and frequent head to toe scanning. So you're sitting there, you're meditating, you're doing Vipassana, and you're scanning your body. This is the second part of the Vipassana technique. You're scanning your body from head to toe. I love this scene in the movie, I think it's called, it was a Pixar movie, and the robot was scanning, looking for the plant, I think, in the world. And I use that analogy here. Here's a scene from the movie. I think it's called, I forget the name of the movie. But I'm scanning my body from head to toe constantly. And what they teach you to do is you focus on any particular sensation, either what they call a large gross sensation, like your back is hurting or your knees are hurting, or very subtle minor sensations like some prickling, some itchiness, the hairs on your arm are moving, you've got a slight tingling in your leg, your toe is maybe vibrating slightly, you're getting a little bit of heat in one part of your body. And what it does is it forces you to focus on that particular sensation and just not respond to it. If it's itchy, don't scratch it. If it's cold, don't cover it up. If it's hot, don't do anything. Just observe it. And through the notion of anicca, which is impermanence, that sensation will ultimately go away. And you just need to ride it out, and ride it out by keeping your mind right in the middle of the pendulum. Don't let your mind swing one way towards aversion, where you're saying, oh, that hurts, I need to move that. Or, oh, I really like that, that's cravings. Oh, I really like that, let's get more of that. Because at some point while doing these Vipassana meditations, you're going to be flooded with a huge amount of positive emotion. You just at some point, some days, you're just going to feel really, really, really elated. And that's just part of the meditation. So don't let your mind go one way to the other. Keep your mind straight there. Focus on the sensation. Learn that it won't last forever. Like anything in life, it doesn't last forever. That's the whole notion of this. But by becoming hyper sensitive to your physical sensations, I believe that at some point you do start to access your unconscious mind. By becoming hypersensitive when you're having a conversation with someone and they say something that previously you would have said, whoa, now you're saying, well, if I respond this way, that person is going to get a little bit ticked off. So it allows you to kind of step back from that for a moment, or take a quick micro thought. take a quick, brief nanosecond to say, well, is that really something appropriate for me to say, or inappropriate for me to say, or maybe I should try to say something nice to this person in this moment, because all of a sudden you're really super aware now, and your level of, sensitivity to that person is now much, much higher through this technique. So for me, I enjoyed it. I like it. It's a lot of theory. It's a lot of pseudoscience. Goenka goes to say he's helped tens of thousands of people cure addictions and alcoholism and drug addictions. I'm not sure. I want to see some, objective studies. I want to see the data. I want to see the papers, the clinical studies, etc. But I get it. I kind of get it. I enjoy it. When I'm doing Vipassana meditation now, I do try to really become hypersensitive to my surroundings. And once the meditation is over, somehow, some way, I'm able to carry that sensitivity, whether I'm speaking with someone, whether I'm doing something, whether I'm going somewhere, whether I'm in traffic, whether I'm at a restaurant. I become, all of a sudden I've become super sensitive to that person. I have more empathy for that person, and I may try to say something nice, compliment someone, just try to make their day a bit nicer, try to make their day a bit smoother. And for me, I got it. I enjoyed the technique of Vipassana, which is 2 parts. You do the Anapana breathing, and then you do the head to body scanning. You become hypersensitive to your physical sensations. That allows you to somehow access your unconscious. Then you can help to mold your unconscious. That drives your thoughts, and then your thoughts ultimately drive your physical actions. And that, for lack of a better explanation, that is Vipassana in a nutshell. And I urge you or encourage you to get online and do your own research with regards to what you think the technique is all about.